Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start over since I wasn't recording it. But so there's really two things we're trying to accomplish with the analyzer. One, it's to give them some really good baseline information. I like to tell people it's like going to the doctor when first thing they do is check your baseline vitals, right? Open up and say, they shoot the lights and the things and everywhere and every hole and everything and get your temperature, and they get your pulse, your pulse oximeter thing. That's the same thing that we are trying to accomplish by using the window analyzer. Okay, so this thing gives us data, like unmanipulated, like legitimate data, to tell them what their windows are performing to. So that's kind of the primary function. The secondary function is we're doing something that nobody else is going to do for them. So if you got like that lady last night, I'm getting 5 quotes. I'm like, holy smokes. I'm like, you don't hear that too much anymore. I told her that. I'm like, that's you don't find too many people that are willing to waste that much time talking to people. But in the case where somebody is making their decision on more than just price, this goes a long ways because you're providing them with some really good information, some really good data that nobody else is going to be able to provide them with. So you're not just saying, yeah, your windows are crappy, they need to be replaced, and this is why, because I have a new window that I want to sell you. But by using this analyzer, we can speak to, here's what your windows are doing now. Here's what, to today's energy standards, they should be doing to be considered energy efficient. So you can formulate your own opinions, and it's important that you say it this exact way. It's important for you to for this data to be used by you so you can formulate your own opinions as to how well or how poorly these windows are working for you. I'm not going to sit here and blow a bunch of smoke and tell you a bunch of lies to, one, make you feel like you need to replace your windows yesterday. And I'm also not going to force feed you a bunch of false data or a bunch of speculation as to how much energy you potentially could save, which again translates to energy savings, dollar savings on your energy bill, right? Money. So we're not going to do that. We're going to avoid all that just so, I don't have to, I don't have to brandish my integrity or bruise my integrity, telling you a bunch of half-truths to make you think you need windows more than you do, or even worse, to falsely imply how much these windows will change for you. We're just going to look at some real data to determine that. And I'm not going to determine that for you. You're going to be the one to do it. So that's what we're trying to do with the analyzer. One, it gives them some really hard data that we're going to test their window, and then we're going to test the sample window when we bring it in for the window demo. And we're going to put them side by side, and we're going to let them formulate their own opinions on how much improvement, comfort, energy savings, lack of dust and allergens, so air quality inside the house. We're going to let them formulate their own opinions as to how much those things will improve based on nothing more than readings from old window to potential new window. Does that make sense? So it's important to understand, if you don't know where you're going with this activity, you can't really take them there, right?
Right.
You're just flailing around. Here's some numbers. I don't know what they mean, but this is kind of cool. And I'm going to do some more numbers on this other window, and that's pretty cool. And it's like, I think I've told both of y'all from your ride-alongs, don't be afraid to share with them what the moisture test is. Don't be afraid to share with them what the scratch test is and why we do it. Look at, if we were to skip this step and not do a little bit of a deeper investigation here, if the concrete's too moist and the concrete's too soft, guess what? We're wasting your money by pretending we can put down a floor coating and it's going to last to the specifications it's intended to last to. So we're trying to eliminate that heartache and that headache for you by you wasting money on a concrete that we know is not suitable to receive a coating. That's why we test. Oh, by the way, here are the results. You scratched at a 4, that's perfect. Anytime we get less than a 3, we got problems. So you're perfect. You're right in this acceptable range in terms of your concrete being hard enough for us to put this coating down. Nobody else is going to share that with them. right? It's the same thing with the analyzer. Don't be afraid to share what you're doing and why this is important, because nobody else is going to do that. So instantly, your credibility, your professionalism leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else. So that's the reason we use the analyzer, how we do it. And Chris saw this done last night. You know, Chris, Ginny, I don't want to move my screen because you can't see it. So this little guy here is called a window analyzer. This tool here, believe it or not, this thing costs $800. Ooh. So it is a high price piece of technology. It's made by EDTM. You can see that right here down in the corner. EDTM, they do not make glass. They do not make windows. What they do make is the best window and glass testing devices you can buy anywhere in the industry. The fire departments that all use those moisture readers where they can shoot a wall and basically x-ray vision into the wall to see moisture or any fire, you know, that's trapped inside the walls. It's all made by EDTM.
EDTM.
No, EDTM. So they are the leaders in testing devices and technology. Nobody does it better than EDTM. So we picked up these devices. We've been using these for 8 years. There's still rarely anybody that their owners, the company owners, are willing to put an $800 device into the hands of their salespeople. So you're probably not going to see this technology from anybody else that you could potentially have out to your home. So what I'm going to do, and I turn it on, what I'm going to do, if you can see these little infrared beams, see that on my hand? And I show them that. So those are actually 3 different distinct beams that are shooting through the glass to give us measurements on how your window is performing as it sits in the wall right now. And the reason we're going to do this is basically so you can formulate your own opinions based on the results that you're going to see here in a second. You can formulate your own opinions as to, 1, how well or how poorly your windows are performing. And 2, later on, once you've picked a window that you think might be a good solution for you, I'm going to bring that window in and I'm going to do this test again. That's the awesome part, because then you can really see what's going on now and what could potentially be the case if you were to replace your windows with the window that you choose from us. So any questions about that? Does that make sense? You following along here? I know it's a lot of information.
Yeah, I'm good right now.
And this is exactly what I say to the clients. I mean, you know, Chris saw it last night. This is exactly what I lay out for the clients. I mention EDTM. I tell them it costs $800 because that stuff's important. I don't want them thinking I got this out of like a gumball machine and it's, you know, it's reliable once every 300 times you use it. This thing's an $800 device. There's no other company where the owners are gladly putting $800 devices in the hands of 8 sales reps. That's a lot of money. So that's what I tell people. And then I say, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to open your window. I'm going to wipe it down a little bit because obviously if it's dirty or it's etched or whatever, that affects the readings. So I'm going to try to clean up the window best as I can. I'm going to open up the window. I'm going to slide this analyzer over the window so the sash will come down in between here. It's going to give us some really cool readings, and then we're going to talk about that. Okay? Any questions? No? All right, here we go. So literally, you're going over to their window. Ooh, doggy. It's cold out there.
It is freaking cold out there.
So fortunately, or unfortunately, you know, my house is newer and they did some upgraded windows, even though they're still garbage. So I did the test. I pressed the hold button. First thing I'm going to do before I go to explain this, I'm going to take a picture with something that's recognizable in the background. Yesterday, it was this runner that the lady had on the table. It was like white with gray stripes. It was unmistakable. So I put it there, or no, I did the after with the runner. The before one I did with her sink and the dishes in her sink. So she can readily see that and say, okay, this isn't fabricated. The guy didn't make this up. So this is all important because if you leave one of these steps out or if you do it wrong, this can be totally questionable. right?
Right.
Oh, well, he just sent me a picture of some other something. So I do something noticeable in their background where they can easily say, oh yeah, that's my house. I take a picture. I say, we're going to use this later. Now let me explain what these mean to you. So the first one here, that's your UV light transmittance. Okay. So that's like you're sitting on the beach with either no SPF or you got SPF 50 on. Okay. What's happening right now, and these are actually pretty good, actually really good. So your window right now is letting 7% UV through the glass. Okay, that's really good. The ladies last night was like 78 or 68 or something. I have a picture of it in my phone.
Okay, so really, like, what is under 10% good? And then, I mean, what am I kind of looking for?
Well, I mean, you'll see in a second. I'll show you some examples. Let me just explain this.
Cool. Okay.
So your window right now is letting through 7% of the UV light. So that means anything, the floor, the drapery, the computer screen, anything that's in the pathway of the sun coming through this window is getting blasted by 7% UV. Okay, that's what that means. Your visibility is a measure of, I could come and spray paint your window black and you'd have great ratings, right? Because the sun isn't going to get through, the heat isn't going to get through as easily, but you're not going to be able to see out the window. So this visible light percentage is like a checks and balances indicator of saying like, okay, that's great. You have great performance, but can you see through the window? Like, is any natural ambient light coming in to the house? And right now you're sitting about 45%. So I can tell clearly that there's some tint on the windows because generally this is high 70s to 90s because it's just clear glass. And that's why you take a picture of it first because it times out. The next one we're going to look at, and usually I have this thing showing right here, pointing to it, is infrared. Now your Windows tested at 8% infrared. So it's pretty good. Compared to most builder grade windows we see, that's generally high 70s to sometimes 90s, which means that 90% of that infrared heat and cold energy is passing right through the glass. And that's why you can sit there in the winter. Most times in the summer, you don't feel it because the AC is working so hard. But in the winter, that's when we hear people say how bad their windows are because they can feel that cold coming right through the glass and the heater can't keep up with the cold. So you feel that cold coming through. It's like, oh my gosh, these windows are terrible. I got to make a change here. Well, the problem is that windows are not a one-way valve. So that 92% that you see is the more painful thing to think about is whenever you have your HVAC running, guess how much air is going right out the glass?
8%.
Exactly. So you have 8% of what your hard-earned money is paying for to keep the house comfortable for your living, for your living space, for your family. 8% of that is going right out the glass. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The last one we're going to look at is called SHGC. You can see right here, that's an abbreviation or an acronym. It stands for Solar Heat Gain Coefficient. That is the BTUs per hour in a decimal format that is coming through the glass and the window. Right now, you are reading at 0.32. And to be considered energy efficient to today's 2021 standards, that needs to be below 0.3 or less. So you are a little bit higher than what is considered energy efficient. So any questions on that?
So 3%. So the SHGC, I had that on another thing.
That's a common window. That was definitely in the window verbiage.
No, I know. So described as a ratio where 1 equals the maximum amount of solar heat allowed through a window, 0 is the least amount. a 3.3 means 30% of the available solar heat can pass through the window. And that's what we're looking for, is less than that 30%?
Correct.
Less than that 0.3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go back to my.
So what I tell them is, you know, now this isn't the last you'll see of this. I'm going to keep this thing handy. And when I, you know, bring in the sample of whichever window you tell me to bring in, we're going to do this test again. And then you're going to be able to see side by side where you're at now and what you could go to with one of the window options that we have available. So this sucked. That was a horrible, I'm actually shocked. I don't think I've ever done it on these windows. I did it in my old house, but that's really good. So the lady last night, just to give you a perspective. So if we, and this happens once, you know, once every 100 appointments, you'll get somebody that has good windows, even though it's builder grade windows. And you just say, man, I'll tell you, these are a lot better than most. I've had one appointment where I just walked, you know, not walked out, but we ended the appointment. I said, hey, look, my best advice to you, my replacement window is not going to perform significantly or even moderately better than these readings we just saw. My best advice with you would, you know, the problem is these are builder grades, so they're not going to last long. That performance that we see today, if we check that in another 2 years from now, it's going to be significantly less, because the materials that the builders use for all that low E coating and all that, they don't last as long as replacement windows that have been highly engineered to not just perform the type of readings we saw here, but to perform 10, 15, 20 years post-installation, not 3 years post-installation. So I said, you know, let those windows live their life cycle, because clearly right now they're doing a good job for you. And we even tested 3 more just to confirm like it wasn't a fluke with that one window, and all 4 windows tested the same. Okay. But, well, folks, I got great news for you. You don't need new windows, you know, ha, ha, ha. And that was it, you know, but I know they're going to call me back when it's time, because I was honest with them. But just to give you a point, you know, again, it's really odd that these are performing so well. The ones last night, these were her ratings. 56% on the UV, 77 on the visible light. Infrared was 62%. So that's a big wow factor. Like, you know, 62% of what you're paying for, right out the window. And I tell people this, I say, windows aren't a one-way valve. There isn't some miraculous engineering in a window where the bad stuff only comes in, it doesn't go out. So what you're paying for, every cent that you're spending to heat or cool the inside of your house, 62% of it's going right out every single window in this house. That's, again, how we build pain for people that want, oh, I just want this one window.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, man, I'll happily take care of you, whether it's one window, 25 windows, or 15 windows. It does not matter to me. But through things like this, we can take their pain point and make it from one window to 25 windows. And that will, not by any kind of sleazy sales tactic, it'll open their eyes to like, I got a bigger problem than one window here. Why don't we hit this head on and address the problem, not just put a Band-Aid on one window, because they're all doing the same thing. So that's how we use the analyzer. Last night she was awesome. You know, it's unfortunate it was a one party, because I think we probably could have, you know, convinced somebody that's otherwise looking for the cheapest thing that that's not the best solution. She was all about the data and the information. She gave us a lot more time than the 90 minutes she agreed to during commitment to agenda. This little deal was super helpful for her to see that, you know. So, you know, to the right person, this is awesome, because it gives them all the control. It gives them all the decision. It gives them all the, how bad are my windows actually? And it's less that we have to force feed and make it sound like we're being salesy or like we're doing what they expect us to do, which is trash their house and tell them how bad they need new windows. and then overpromise or overstate the results they could potentially get. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to shut it down with is to tell you that was her window when she ended up choosing both windows, but I think I only did it on the sunrise because that was the one she liked the most. Said her husband would probably go with the Vistamart because he's cheap, but we tested the sunrise and the UV went from 56% to 4%. And mine was like, what, 7 or 8? So that's pretty darn good for a 10-year-old builder grade window.
Yep.
Her visible light transmittance in her window went from 77 to 61% on the sunrise. So we're still in the ballpark in terms of still letting natural light come through to the house.
Right.
Her infrared was 62%. The infrared on the sunrise was 1%.
Right. So that's where she gets her real savings, is in that that infrared heat or cool loss.
And that's one thing I left out. I tell people, just like I did last night, now these next two, after I've explained UV and visible light transmittance, I say these next two, infrared and solar heat gain coefficient, they're the biggest indicators of how good or bad your window is performing right now.
Right.
So her infrared was 62%. It went to 1% on the sunrise. Her solar heat gain was 0.72. So almost at that 1, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't get any worse than 1. And the sunrise window went down to 0.27.
So we're underneath that 30% threshold that we're looking for.
Exactly, which she pointed out and remembered. I asked her, do you remember what this was supposed to be under? And she's like, yeah, you said 0.3. So she remembered. I do that to kind of see just if people were listening or whatever. And she said, yeah, it's supposed to be under 0.3, you said, right? And I said, yeah, you're right. So we're right there. We're under it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really effective tool. This thing has won me so many jobs. It's taken so many 1 or 2 window jobs and made them 15, 17, 19 window jobs, because this really allows you to say, do you think your other 25 windows are doing anything different than this one? Honestly, I mean, we can go test how many ever you want. And some dudes that are like super techie, I've tested the whole house before because they're like, this room gets super cold and this gets super hot and blah, blah, blah. So we run all over the house testing this, and they love it. Yeah, why not? If they love it, let's do it.
Yeah, heck yeah, it's fun. You're there to have fun.
This thing will increase your conversion, and it will help take 1 or 2 window problems and multiply them times 25 windows in the house.
Right.
So that's it. Any questions that y'all have? Chris, you saw this happen yesterday in the home. Any questions that you have?
He's on mute. I don't know, but I'm good right now. That's enough.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute.
I'm good. Yeah.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah, no, sorry. I didn't realize I was on mute. No, the only question, you kind of answered my question. So what I was going to ask is, what do you typically do if you do a test and it's like, you don't see results that are very different, but you already talked through that. So.
Yep. And like I said, it's, there was a lot of, it's just, we get stuff in our head and we become our own worst enemy. There was, I think Jason had one. He was like, this analyzer sucks. And, it's like, we become our own worst enemy, right? We just get these preconceived notions and we just multiply them times everything.
Yep.
It's just human nature. But, I've had it once and I'm the biggest fan of this thing. I mean, I pushed Scott to get these for us and we had these before anybody even knew what they were. But, it really is the greatest thing. And again, I've had it one time in 11 years where I said, man, I got some great news for you today.
I don't think you need window. Yeah, but it works. But that also, goes right back into that trust, that, and it's a story that you can tell somebody if down the line and say, hey, look, I'm not here to sell you something you don't need. I've actually told people that, hey, your windows are functioning at a really high level. We can't really make much of a difference here. I recommend you keep these for a couple of years. And then that creates that, it sometimes turns their thought on their head and like, what do we, oh.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before, but I can't tell you how many times, and I look for it. I look for opportunities for people to say, you're the only ones that have said anything about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like yesterday when you were like, has nobody else talked to you about those verticals right there? Or not yesterday, yesterday.
Maybe we can go through that because that was in your ride along report. I think we could have done that probably 3-4 other times and got her really to help her notice that, wait a minute, nobody talked to you about this and you're entertaining a bid for something and you're so aesthetically inclined and you're actually entertaining a bid where they didn't even talk to you about this, that, or that thing. Yeah. How do you feel about that? I mean, good God. I mean, I don't know you well, but in the 25 minutes I've been here, you're all about aesthetics. So if these details haven't been covered, how confident are you in that bid, even though it may be less, but how confident are you that you're going to get what the heck you want?
Yep.
So that's in our ride along report. But anyways,
I know it's different.
Anything else about the analyzer so I can stop recording?
Nope.
Chris?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I mean, everybody's recording now. They're going to hear that.